I am committing this to memory, for I fear it all shall be forgotten soon enough, becoming legend and not fact. Be warned, the Stilask Woods may be gone, but the Podvori that lurked within are still alive and well. I was merely a boy when this happened to me, but I will never forget the terror that lurked within the Stilask Woods. My father always warned me of the Stilask Woods. There is nothing but death in these woods. Only foolhardy traders cross through those woods. Ever since I was a child, I had been curious about the woods. Ever since I was a child, I had been curious about the woods that were like no other. Ever since I was a child, I had been curious about the woods that were like no other. The trees seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky, with sharp, brittle points covering almost every surface of the trees. As a boy, I heard the rumours, someone playing too close to the brittle trees and tripping, impaling themselves on the tree spikes. I don't think anyone had actually seen it happen. The Stilask Woods were feared. The only path through those woods was Trader's Trail, carved a long time ago from the trees. On opposite ends of the Stilask Woods lay Ashford and Mila, the only two towns for miles around. Most traders regretted taking Trader's Trail when they came back. They came back with stories of creatures, their guards killed and supplies raided. Some barely escaped with their lives. Unfortunately, I was destined to also cross the trail. Fate had decided I would experience horrors that few had survived. My father had worked at the local coal mine. It was good money for what we needed, and we never starved. The mine ended up running out. Faced with starvation or moving towns to Mila's coal mine, my father chose the latter. He packed up what few belongings my mother and I owned, and we gave a trader what was left of our father's earnings for him to escort us through the Stilask Woods. His name was Davy. He was a cruel man, and forced my father to dance and beg before he finally allowed us to follow behind his caravan. Davy had only two guards, Sagan and Gerien. They were huge men, towering over my father's 5'10" height. We travelled only in the daytime, stopping every time at 6 p.m. on the dot and beginning again at 7 a.m. in the morning, making sure to have two guards throughout the night. My mother was always scared of the darkness in those woods, what lay behind them, with crawling teeth and dark red eyes. I tried to comfort her, though I was merely a boy. "Mama," I'd call her, "it will all be okay. Tata will protect us." All she did was sob at my unrelenting optimism. It would be a 10-day trek through the woods. I will write every day, from the first to the fateful last day when I made it out of those terrible, terrible woods. The first day. We set out, beginning at a brisk pace, trying to warm our bodies for the incoming winter. The temperature in these lands had already dropped below 50 degrees. It would snow in the coming days, and Davy feared that if we stayed unmoving when the snow came, that we would be buried. It didn't help that the woods that surrounded the crowded path were thick, covering what little sun had broken through the clouds. Sounds seemed to echo from the trees, reverberating around in our skulls. For a long time it seemed as if the first day would pass uneventful. Then the voices started. It seemed to come at every direction at once. Whispers, shouts, cries for help. They all came. Even though the voices seemed to all overlap, I could hear each one individually crying out to me.
Dlaczego to się dzieje? To nie może być prawdziwe. Pieprzyć was czyścić. Boże, mój ojciec nie żyje.
It had been a long time since I had heard my native tongue spoken by anyone else other than my father. Something along the lines of "this can't be real. Fuck you all." It seemed to me like the cries of past travellers who had fallen. I was particularly disturbed by one small boy's voice who whispered, "My father is dead." It felt almost unbearable until Davy shouted through the storm of voices, "We must keep going. We will never make it in 9 days if we stop now. This will only get worse. Keep moving!" Even though I knew his speech came from his desire to be paid for his goods, it was enough to compel my family to continue onwards, albeit with our hands on our ears. We had been walking for what must have been 4 hours before the voice suddenly and decisively stopped. It freaked me out more than the voices themselves. One moment I had to keep my hands on my ears to avoid going mad. The next it was completely quiet. We continued to walk in complete unease until it was time to stop travelling. Davy gave the order and we all started to unpack our sleeping sacks and prepare for night. Late into the night, both of my parents were fast asleep. Only the 2 guards stood over our little camp. I had to pee badly and had but little option but to approach the surrounding woodland and defile it. The 2 guards were drunk and laughing at my timid approach to the brittle trees as I stand there relieving myself. I saw 2 red pinpricks seem to appear in front of the darkness. A pale white figure emerged from the darkness. Its brown, patchy fur seemed to grow and stop randomly, producing some horrifying monstrosity. It stood barely shorter than me. It almost looked like some kind of monkey. It had a tail and not some half-torn stub. Its face was another horror altogether. Its mouth seemed to stretch ear to ear, its long teeth protruding out of its heavily breathing mouth. We stood there, staring at each other, I frozen in fear, it examining me. The 2 guards tried to whisper for me to come back quickly. "Peter!" they shouted in a whisper. "Come back!" The monstrosity seemed to have heard them, and as soon as I had finally regained some control over my body, it raised its long arm, the arm with some kind of needle-like fingers. It slashed me across the chest, a gash that seemed to cover my entire chest. At the moment it happened, I didn't feel the pain. I just quickly fell over and scooted myself near the guards who were now shouting and waving their weapons at the beast, trying to scare it. For hours afterwards my chest felt like it was on fire, and I didn't recover for 3 days. For long afterwards my parents were more protective over me, placing wards from our home country to protect me.